So they dropped a new movie on Tubi. Funny thing here is that I watched this, and then the movie I watched directly after this, which was something I watched by myself. Both of these movies had a co-starring role from Julian Sands, and were his last couple movies that he made before his untimely death. I found that to be very ironic. Doesn't really give any context to the film at all. I just found it very odd because I didn't know he was in either of these films, and I watched them back to back on two completely different platforms, disconnected from any knowledge of his involvement. So that's noteworthy here. And I think this is second to last film, third, somewhere in that area. But this is about a woman who is a flute player.
Isn't it called like a flautist or something?
Something like that. I have no idea. She'd know better than me. No. She's in some kind of like an orchestra. And, she wants to be recognized by the maestro, right? Okay.
The conductor.
Conductor. And he is going to go with someone else's material. She might even get kicked out. She doesn't know her future is unseeable. And so she has a piece of music she wants played. He's like, no way. But there is this woman who had this piece of music that he really wants. But she died. And she's like, I can get it for you. Yeah. And so she goes to track it down. And this is evil music. Evil. And when it's played, people go crazy and kill. This is not anything new. This is like the whole Diablos in Musica thing. The movie I'm always going to think of when I hear that is Bloodhook, which is a slasher film with a killer fisherman, which I showed Kaylee and she thought was pure dog shit.
Oh my gosh. I'd love to rewatch that now.
But it is such a silly ass movie. And the whole notion that like music can be played in a specific arrangement to invoke like devilish behavior in people, or that it's going to connect to some kind of entity that is evil, is something that's been around for a very long time. Obviously, like a certain musical arrangement was outlawed in like France. I'm just making shit up at this point.
I don't think it's a crazy idea though, because like we know that they're like that.
You don't think it's a crazy idea to outlaw a certain arrangement of notes?
No, well, yes, but that music can have like an effect on people that way, because there's like proof that like certain frequencies and vibrations have like a physiological effect on you. So
they should be outlawed.
Well, isn't there like something that the government like has developed that's like a wave, like a frequency attack for crowd dispersal?
I don't know.
Is this not a thing that you told me about?
I did?
About this at one point, but it it makes.
I learn a lot of shit.
Well, anyway,
and I forget a lot of shit, obviously.
From somewhere, so I don't know if I'm just making that up, but.
Anyway, the movie is completely generic, forgettable, seen it a million times kind of movie. The production value here is higher than I would have expected going into this. This genuinely feels like a bad Blumhouse film. I know people hate on them and are like, everything they make is bad, so you mean just a Blumhouse film? No, I think Blumhouse has made a good amount of good movies, some really damn good movies, and a lot of mediocre, forgettable, kind of repetitive drivel. And this is one of those. This is one of those movies that just feels like it was AI generated. It takes every trope in the book and throws it at the screen. Where this movie really, really lacks. It's all the story and all of that is just kind of very generic, basic, whatever. But where this movie really suffers is in the horror.
Yes, yeah. I thought it was a really lame movie. I think that the horror is just so underutilized. There's like a bunch of these really poorly set up jump scare type moments, and just I felt like there wasn't a lot of tension or suspense built. And it's kind of a shame because I think in like the last act, when we get to see kind of like the monster reveal, it doesn't look terrible.
Yeah, the Pied Piper.
Yeah, and there's even like one death. That happens at the end, right? I'm not crazy for getting that. That was like kind of cool looking.
Oh, yeah. Very reminiscent of something from Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but I really wasn't into it. I didn't buy into the story. Like, there's a mother-daughter plot going on that I did not connect to, like, whatsoever. I felt like that was very underdeveloped, and I think that the culmination of it was, like, unearned and did not make me feel the, like, hoorah moment that it was going for. And I also think that the music was underutilized, too, for something that's all about, like, music driving people crazy or having some effect on everyone. There is, like, a tune that's repeated throughout, but I don't know. I don't think it was haunting enough, and I don't feel like it was really incorporated as thoroughly as it could have been. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like there would be a really smart way to write this movie, especially if it was written by somebody who has a musical background, like I don't know. I just think that there could be some really cool stuff. Like one of the characters mentions like leitmotifs in the orchestral piece that she's working on, which is like really, but I don't know. I didn't feel like that was even like addressed like musically later. I don't know.
Speaking of music that makes people go insane, my favorite, off the top of my head, I could be forgetting something at the moment, but my favorite display of this in film is actually in an anthology film.
I was going to mention this. Called
Chilling Visions, Five Senses of Fear, and this is the hearing one because each segment is based on a different sense of the human body. This song like drives people insane when played on piano. And I love that. I thought that was super eerie. Mm-hmm. And that's the way you do this. Now, that's a short segment. It's only like 15, 20 minutes long at most. But I do think that this film could have worked. You're right. Like, the way that they build up the relationship with the daughter and the mother, I just don't feel a connection there. We just don't spend enough time with them. We don't really get to know about their relationship. She's so disconnected from her kid throughout the movie. She's really just kind of focused on her work, and her kid's kind of sidelined. There's also this, her daughter has an ear issue. She's almost deaf. And I just, like, because the character is dealing with hearing issues, and this is about music and hearing the music, it's going to give her kind of the superpower of being able to not hear the music or whatever. It's an obvious setup for this thing, but even that I feel like isn't utilized almost at all in a way that feels like, satisfying.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to look at the film. Like, it's very unsatisfying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elements that it has that you think could build up to something good, and it just ends up being very, like, blah the whole time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's just nothing that keeps you engaged. There's nothing that keeps you thrilled. There's nothing that keeps you emotionally connected to anybody. It's just kind of there. It's, like, slightly watchable, but it is one of the more blah films that I've watched this year, because it has all that potential. It has, I think all the actors are good. I think that the production value here is fairly high. I feel like you have a concept, while gimmicky, can work if done correctly. I mean, we just watched Tarot tonight with the kids, which I had already seen before, but that's like a gimmick film made for, because I think this is PG-13. It should be if it isn't.
Yeah.
I can't see why this would be R. But this is the kind of film that is perfect, gateway beginner horror. And if it was done in a way that was actually exciting and scary and thrilling and fun. And it's none of those things. It feels very disjointed and muddy, and the like geography of events don't really feel connected and well constructed. So there's just so many issues throughout this film, and it's a shame, because with that kind of budget and with the talent that obviously is there, you just invest a little more money in a better script, and get somebody who actually knows how to direct horror, because the horror in this is abysmal. Even if you have a bad script, you can still set up good scares. There's been plenty of like really interesting horror going on in movies with bad scripts, and I'm like, oh, I really liked the horror, but it's kind of like with Tarot. I thought that had like the horror was handled very well, and I'm like, oh, I'd like to see what more that director could do with a better script, because I think the way that they set up horror was actually really cool and exciting and fun, as to where with this one I felt nothing like that.
Yeah, I agree.
With the horror, like I can't even. The only like there was an image of like this door that like appears and like people going, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
I forgot this
like,
also. Sorry,
no, go
that
ahead.
just literally reminded me though. During that scene with the door, there's like a good 5 to 7 minutes of the film that was completely unwatchable for me because of like a strobe effect.
Yeah.
And
even I struggled with it.
It was so bad. I already hate that effect in movies in general. I think that it's kind of, I just feel like, why use it? Like, I know it's supposed to be overwhelming and like disorienting, but I honestly just feel like it's really bad on people's eyes, and it always freaks me out and gives me anxiety, and I can't watch.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. Like in a like my eyes hurt and I feel like I'm gonna have a seizure kind of a way.
It feels like abuse.
Yeah. So this film has a very long segment that it really goes
so
on
long.
Way longer than it needs to, and for pretty much no reason. Like, there's no real reason that it needs to have that.
It's supposed to be an assault on your senses, and it's
but
just...
for a movie that's about sound, to make... See, that's the other thing, too. Like, for it to be a visual thing, it would be different if it was, like, some crazy auditory, like, I don't know, tone or something. Like, could be equally annoying, of course, but, like, at least then I'd be like, oh, I get it. Like, it's the sound and everything. I don't know.
It feels very
dumb.
visually lazy.
Yeah.
Because it is so disorienting. It just hurt my eyes. And I'm not somebody who struggles with strobe lights. You know, I don't like them per se, but they are disorienting like they mean to be. But this does go on for at least 3 straight minutes, at least.
It felt
I
like
would say it was
5.
like 5. Because
or more even.
Kelly wouldn't look at the TV, and she kept waiting for me, and I was like having to kind of squint through it or like close my eyes for a minute and kind of look away because the brights were so bright, and then the darks were so dark, and it just kept flashing like intermittently, and I was just like, dude,
it's so
stop.
bad. They're literally, it's like going to a haunted house and they just have strobe lights going, and it's literally just a distraction because they don't have anything scarier to show you. Like, boo.
I'm glad you remember that, because that was an awful
that was
aspect
another
of
part.
the film. And just added to the laziness of the horror.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think that strobe lights should be completely banned from film, but
I think there should be a limit. I think there
Yes.
should definitely be a time limit for how long you can have them on, like, the effect. Because the laziness, again, like, there's other ways to show something being visually disorienting.
Yeah.
Even with other effects, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's that.
That's that.
Definitely not a recommendation,
No.
but if you are into generic, kind of gimmicky, beginner, entry-level horror, and you want to like throw something on for the kids, I would go with Tarot.
Yes, yeah.
Or there's tons of other titles, but if you have Tubi and you got nothing else to watch, I guess it's slightly watchable, but it's not good. So, wasn't horrendous. Because this is nowhere near horrendous. I've watched so much worse this year, but it's also not good.
Yeah.
And not a recommendation. Like, the competency here and there is what angers me about films like this. Because I know the excuse isn't that the talent wasn't there.
Right.
It's that the passion wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the writing wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that's that. Anyway, we'll see you in the comments.
Bye.